I say all the time, I don't care what color hair they have. They are welcome in our house, and it is our job to make them feel welcome in our house. And I say all the time, I don't have scripts. I don't do scripts. I'm not going to give you a script. I want you to be authentically you, but I want you to make our guests feel welcome in our house.
Welcome back to the Entrepreneur Studio podcast. I'm Chris Allen, and today in the studio, we have Andre Janusz, the founder of a Denver-based specialty coffee roaster called Logan House. Andre, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, Andre, you've built your business with a community-first mindset. And so I'm curious to know when somebody walks into a Logan House Coffee Company location for the very first time, what do you hope they feel? And really, what does that say about the type of business that you've built?
Yeah, you know, it's almost like you're at our orientation program for our new employees. But this is something we spend a lot of time with folks as they're joining our team. And there are actually four things that we're looking for our guests to experience when they first come into the cafe. And the first thing is that I want everybody to feel welcome. I say all the time, I don't care what color hair they have. They are welcome in our house, and it is our job to make them feel welcome in our house. And I say all the time, I don't have scripts. I don't do scripts. I'm not going to give you a script. I want you to be authentically you, but I want you to make our guests feel welcome in our house.
It's good.
So that's the first step. And then we also spend a fair amount of time talking about and working with trying to help our customers feel appreciated. We know there are literally hundreds of coffee shops in Denver. And so often, well, frankly, thank you just gets omitted from the whole experience.
Yeah.
And it goes such a long way. It's so easy, costs nothing. And it's remarkable how often it is just not a part of the experience. And again, don't do scripts, but I say, I want you to make them feel appreciated. So, for me, that's thanks for coming in today. It was nice to see you, things along those lines. But you do you, whatever is comfortable for you. And the third thing that we shoot for is we want people to feel heard. And this has a couple layers to it. Obviously, we've got to hear them to know that they want an iced oat milk vanilla latte and chocolate croissant. And so that we prepare the right thing and all of those things. But we also have to meet our guests where they are and say, this is, some guests come in and say, I want to, I know nothing about specialty coffee. I want to dive in. And there are other guests that come in and say, mug, dark, thank you. That's it, and so finding that, reading the room a bit, if you will, and finding that spot where they are and say, this is how I can best interface with this guest.
Yeah.
And there are lots of guests that come in, particularly to our Stanley location, that are new to specialty coffee. And so they need a bit of help navigating our menu and learning how to, for us to get that iced oat milk vanilla latte or, something that is, what they're after. And the last part of the experience, I refer to it as paid, but we want to help people know what to expect after they've finished the transaction, after they've paid. Where do they go? What do they do? So we'll sort of direct traffic for them and help them know what to do. And we can kind of set a reasonable expectation for them so that, if this is their first time at Logan House, it feels like a place that they've been, 15 times before. They know where to stand. We know they're going to call their name out when it comes out. It's going to look like this and all that kind of thing. Even if it's their first time, I want it to feel like they've done this 15 times before.
That's awesome. So welcome, appreciated, heard, and basically find their way.
Right. Exactly right.
I love it.
Yeah, and it's, a part of the whole service experience for us is we say we want to be courteous, not pretentious. Gracious is what we strive for, not pretentious. So often when you get to this level of coffee, and I think probably anything, but at this level of coffee, our knowledge, our experience with it, can come off as elitist or pretentious.
for sure.
And I feel like that really detracts from the customer experience. And so I want it to feel comfortable. Like I said, I want everybody to feel welcome and, make this is a really approachable place for you to say, I don't know what that is. Can you explain that to me in words that I understand?
I like that.
And that concept of graciousness is something that we work on pretty hard. It's a hard target to hit, but that's something that we really enjoy. And I think that has allowed us to sort of develop those relationships with our guests. That gets beyond this is Ashley and she likes, a vanilla latte with soy milk, and she gets that every day.
Yeah.
We, develop relationships that are just much more deep than that. We know we know her kids' names. We know their dogs' names. We know that they were, vacationing, in Vail over the weekend, and stuff like that. So those that connection is super important, and I think that's something that we've found has been really rewarding for our staff as well as for our guests, because for our staff, they make hundreds of cups of coffee a day. But the thing that changes about that is the people that come in, is the guests.
Yeah.
And our guests are amazing. They're doing cool and amazing things. And if we take 10 seconds or 30 seconds on each time that they visit to get to know them and what they're up to, that part is really interesting. And it keeps it fresh for our team. And it also, I feel like it makes the experience just richer for our guests.
Yeah, it's good. Well, let's back off the number of locations that you built for just a second, and just help everybody quickly understand something that may not be easy to quickly understand, but the roasting industry. Just give us a behind the scenes look quickly to help us understand what that's really about, what it takes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, roasting coffee is really fascinating. It's the second most actively traded commodity in the world, 23 coffee growing countries around the world, and hundreds of little pockets of regions inside of those 23 countries. And so I think that's what makes roasting coffee so interesting, is it's so wide and it is so deep, and it's one of those rabbit holes that can just go forever. And I love things like that, where you can dive in and you can really focus on something, and the deeper you dig, the bigger you realize the onion is. And so our roastery is on Colfax in central Denver, and our roaster, we bring green beans in from all over the country, and our roaster and I work together to sample the coffee when it comes in, and we choose coffees that we feel like that are a great fit for our profile and for our guests. We shoot for coffee to be widely appealing, yet still interesting. There is, I don't know if you've ever had one of those coffees. I'll take, for example, coffee from Kenya can be really polarizing. Some people just love Kenyan coffee, and other people are on the opposite end of the spectrum. It can have this really bright, like tomato character, which is super interesting for some. And others are like, that's not what I'm looking for in a cup of coffee. I taste the tomato, but tomato coffee, these things are not, they don't line up for me. And so for us, we look for, we want to offer both, right? We want to have coffees that are really interesting for our guests, but we also want to have things that are, what they're expecting, what they're expecting in a cup of coffee. So that's part of the challenge, and part of the thing that makes things really interesting and challenging for our roaster, Camper and I to work on, is to balance. This is, going to be what our guests are expecting, and these are the adventurous things, then the things that change over monthly for us, to new and fresh, different coffees. And so it's really a fun process. Sometimes I wish it was, I wish it were easier. There are times, particularly at the start, from part of the year this year, was challenging. Bringing in coffee from some of these 23 coffee growing regions around the world was hard. Tariffs made things difficult, and transit made things difficult, and all those things. But we weathered that storm, and or at least knock on wood, we weathered that storm.
Hopefully.
Yeah, and things are going really well now, and things are sort of stabilizing in the coffee sort of coffee world now, green coffee world now. But I say that knowing, that's
Things change every day.
Yeah, exactly. It's tenuous for sure.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I think is really interesting, and there's a juxtaposition in your business, which is, kind of starting with the small batch roasting and fresh to door, delivery to this community and connection model, right? Mm-hmm. So talk to us about how that connection really got made for you to, bring Logan House to life.
Yeah. So that is how, the original plan for Logan House was just to be direct to consumer. We called it the milkman model, where we would drop off coffee on your doorstep. 2 weeks later, we come back and we do it all again. And that business was going really well. And one of our good friends now, but it was a coffee customer in the very beginning, said, "Hey, Andre, I know you don't want to do a cafe, but I've got a friend that's working on something in the Central Park neighborhood. And I think this lines up with your ethos. You should talk to Mark." I said, "Okay, I'll talk to Mark." And so Mark and I sat down for a cup of coffee, and the meeting that we had, I walked in saying, "No cafes. Never doing a cafe, no cafes, no cafes, no cafes." And after Mark told me sort of what he had in mind for Stanley, about putting 50 Colorado businesses all together under one big roof, 150,000 square feet or something like that. And they said, we're going to have Denver Biscuit over here. We're going to have Rosenberg's over here. We're going to have Annette over there. This, and I said, I thought this is a really neat project, not just because of the people that are made up that are going to be a part of it, but also they had this really interesting ethos for the marketplace. They call it the Stanifesto, which is included in our lease. That is, I don't want to go through the whole thing, but one of the things that I think paraphrases the thing probably best is there's no point in making a profit if you're not also making a difference. And so these 50 businesses that are all working out at Stanley are like, they all have that sort of mindset. And so that helped to really transition for us. So coming out of that conversation I had with Mark, I said, "Damn it, we're doing a coffee shop."
Wow.
And that in the end,
one conversation.
Yeah, one conversation. I was like, well, I guess that's how it's gonna play out. And it was really great to take these short interactions that we would have with our guests as we're dropping our customers as we're dropping off coffee all the time, to something that was much longer, and we could experience and have a cup of coffee with someone that we had been roasting coffee for 4 years. We could now sit down at the bar and have a coffee with them and chat and get to know them a lot more than just knowing this is their address and this is their dog's name and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And we tried to carry that through. Relationships are a big part of what we do in the coffee business, because, like I mentioned before, there are hundreds of places to get a coffee, and so this is coffee is an important part. But I sort of think of it as this is the height that is required to ride this ride.
Yeah.
And so what we do from there is what makes it different. Makes the experience. Makes it different for us.
Well, when our first conversation, you had this phrase of, or just this thing I remembered, which is this midlife crisis motorcycle ride through Argentina. And I was like, you got to tell me about that. So unpack that for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is taking a few steps back. So this is before coming out of business school. I had a bunch of stops in corporate America, worked for investment companies and construction companies, consulting companies. And I don't really fit. Trucker hat, jeans, plaid shirt. Like I should have been able to figure out that like I'm not a good fit for corporate America, but I was, slow learner on that one. And eventually I just said, okay, my last stop was at Janusz in Cherry Creek. And I said, okay, I've got to do something else. I don't know what I'm going to do when I leave here, but I can't keep doing this. And so on my bucket list was, riding a motorcycle. It was riding my motorcycle down to Argentina. And people often ask me like, what's in Argentina? I'm like, I don't know. And I don't know what, and it's, I haven't been there yet in part one. And part two is I'm almost more interested in what's between here and there than I am specifically in what's in Argentina. And so anyway, I hit the road. I've been on the road for a couple months. And actually, as I was hitting the road, my grandfather got real sick, and so I went north out of Denver when I started off the trip. And so you can tell me about the navigation skills were questionable. And so anyway, I went north first, and then started heading south. And so it was November, and I stopped for a cup of coffee at a coffee roaster, primarily because I was freezing and on a motorcycle, and it's cold outside. You get cold pretty quick. And I was like, well, coffee roaster will have coffee. I can stop, have a coffee, get up back on the road and keep heading south. And that one cup of coffee turned into 6 months of apprenticing for this guy, learning the business in the process. And I thought, okay, Argentina, you're going to have to wait. I'm going to go back to Denver and start a coffee company. And it was really a fascinating process, but it was one of those where the universe was saying, like, like you left, so you got to, now it's time to go in a different direction.
Yeah, this is the way.
This is the way. And so the universe sort of laid it out for me. I just sort of followed along and said, okay. And like I said, I sort of think of the universe as also being involved in that conversation with Mark of like, I'm never doing a coffee shop. To me, okay, I'm doing a coffee shop. I've eaten a lot of crow I'm never doing that. I'm never opening a coffee shop, by the way. So since there's 4 of them now.
Well, you have this impeccable sort of service model that we heard, and how you train and orient the culture that you're building. How do you stay service first in such a crowded space? That is coffee, and how do you maintain the artistry that you sort of originated with a lot of these ideas to bring Logan House to life?
I think I'm going to kind of punt with my answer, but I'm going to say that it really is on the people that we bring in on our team and that join our team, I think are the ones that deliver that. Mm-hmm. When we interview folks, and particularly when we're onboarding each one of our new team members, I will frequently say during those onboarding conversations, you are too smart to do this forever. It is, you wouldn't be sitting here if you didn't have other directions to go. And it used to, frankly, as a side note, used to drive me crazy that in the service, in food service in particular, turnover is just a very challenging thing to manage.
Yeah.
And coffee
constantly
recruiting, and one day my wife said to me, what if you stopped trying to fight the tide of turnover and started embracing it and thinking of this as an opportunity for you to, help people grow, and so that it will not feel so difficult when they leave, but it also, you may end up being able to hold on to your great people because they're still growing while they're working with us. Yeah. And so that's something that, as a part of every one of our onboarding conversations, I have these conversations with them of what is next, or which direction are you growing? And we have one of the folks on our team at Stanley is writing a screenplay right now. Which I find super fascinating. I know nothing about writing screenplays, but I find it super interesting. And she has told me on several occasions that she uses the people that she meets working at the cafe as, characters in the things that she's writing.
Wow.
And similarly, a gal that's worked with us, gosh, it's got to be approaching 6 years now. She has studied biochemical engineering. and just finished that program. And I think she's on her third internship that she secured out of people that she has met working at the cafe.
Oh, that's amazing.
And, she's studying biochemical engineering. She's not going to be a barista for the rest of her life. And so she's, I think, having that focus and having our people focused on, this is, you're not just here to serve coffee. You're not just here for I tell them often that if you're here just for the $25 an hour that you're going to make, working as a barista, like you're missing at least half of the value of being here, because so many of the people that are coming in are really great. And if you get to know them and connect with them, there are so many ways that you can use this position to do whatever it is that's next for you. And I'm constantly amazed at the different things that our people are doing in the next steps that they're taking.
Yeah. So, the reality that I'm understanding is, the service really comes from the culture that you're building, and you're building a culture based on people helping them see the opportunity and helping them along their way. I think that's an amazing thing. That is a reputation that you guys have, right? Like, so the culture, is the thing that builds the service, but it's also building a reputation. And also people go, maybe I want to work there.
Yeah. A gal that just joined our team recently is a librarian, and she's so kind. She has a great deal of coffee experience. And she said, as a librarian, I don't get to connect with people all that much.
Yeah.
It's pretty quiet in a library, right? But in a cafe, talking all the time. And she is fantastic. And so I don't know if that focus was something, I don't know if she knew about that focus of ours prior to joining our team, but I'm pretty confident that it is a good fit for her, as she's, these are things that, helping her grow. And so I don't know, it's, in addition, it has helped me reframe the turnover challenge that we experience in this industry, as something like we're helping our people transition into the next great thing for them, whatever that looks like. Great. Let's help them get there.
Yeah, let's do it together.
Right.
Well, you go from having to eat crow from doing one location, and now you have multiple ones. Right. So how do you sort of decide on a new location, where, and what's different about each of them?
Yeah. So Stanley, like I said, started out of this conversation I had with Mark Shaker, and then our second location is about 4 blocks from here, actually, just on the other side of the railroad tracks in Rhino. It's the main floor of an office building. Opened 5 months before the COVID shutdown, so suboptimal, I would say there. And we're still, frankly, waiting for the office to refill in. And so we made a decision. We thought that Rhino is a really exciting place to be. It's growing so rapidly, and then of course COVID hit a big pause button, and the commercial world changed as everybody started working from home, and so those things have been pretty big factors. And so our second location in Rhino, and then our third location is in the Lowry neighborhood, which is about 10 minutes from Stanley. And so we have a lot of sort of crossover, which was really great. So frankly, a number of our guests out at Stanley said, hey, there's a spot in Lowry that might be a good fit for a Logan House, and it would certainly be a lot closer for us if you're over here. So that helped us sort of push in that direction.
That's pretty cool.
And then our last location is on 15th Street downtown, and also an office building. And it's an interesting challenge as we balance this. It's funny in that world to have in that cafe is busy Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because so many people are doing like a hybrid work schedule. And so having to manage that a bit of, oh, we need to plan for Wednesday to be our busiest day, which is a really rare scenario in food service. But it has worked out pretty well. And so there's lots of room to grow in both of those locations. And I don't know how all of the commercial office world will evolve. But one of the things that I think has worked well and been important for us is being able to be flexible and make changes to sort of respond to what that needs, what the need is of that market, and that kind of thing.
So something that's really interesting is a lot of the direction that I'm sort of perceiving as you're talking through this is you're getting these bits of information from guests and from just even the Stanley location, a guest pointed you to Mark, and so I think a challenge that a lot of business leaders struggle with is staying connected and not being out of touch. How do you stay so connected, and how do you get those insights to surface? Because think about it like this: there's a lot of CEOs that they're the furthest removed from the field, right?
Totally.
And so they get information that's old. You seem to be getting information faster. What's your secret there?
So I had a friend in college, and his family is in the wine business, and they've been in the wine business for forever in California. Very notable, recognizable name. And he told me that one of the things that he learned from his grandfather was the best thing for the winery, best thing for their wine business was the winemaker's footsteps. The best things for the grapes were the winemaker's footsteps. And I've sort of kept that in the back of my mind. It also helps that I'm in the coffee business, where the opportunity to sit down with a guest for coffee is pretty easy. And I can, our guests come in, I see them, I talk to them, and can kind of just have those conversations. So it's in our business, it's easy for me to sit down and do that. It's also easy for me to get buried in the weeds of everything else. But I think,
because that is a conscious choice.
Truth. But I think it's not just because I think our guests enjoy that connection. I certainly enjoy the connection, because again, I think that's the thing that makes the service part of our business so interesting, is the relationships that I've developed with our guests over the years we've had the cafes, because it's something that we really value, something that has proven to be useful as we've grown and done different things. But it is also something that I find really rewarding, and that's where I get a lot of the positive feelings from our guests. Like, this employee is doing really well, or hey Andre, this needs a little bit of work. You should direct attention here. And it's great to be able to have those conversations. And just as a side note, sometimes if the radio's not right, and I'll get a message from some guests that I know pretty well, and they're like, "Hey Andre, the radio at Stanley really needs some work." And I'm like, "I'm on it," and we'll send a note to the team to choose a different radio station and that kind of stuff. So you're right. It is a conscious choice, and it, like I said, it helps that I'm when I'm in the cafes, I can sit down with my guests and just say, "How are things? What can I get you? How are things going?" But it's not just focused on our business, but it's how are you doing?
Yeah.
What's happening? How was your wife's surgery? All of those sorts of things. Bring me up to date. What's happening? How's school going for your kids? Those sorts of things.
One of the things that I liked that you said was just how you think about improvement, right? Daily improvement. So talk about how you think about getting a little bit better every day.
I'm struggling to remember which book I read this in, but the 1% Better Every Day program that I think it was the British cycling team used, and this approach seemed really manageable to me. Of let's look at each one of our businesses, the 4 cafes and the roastery, and how can we get better today than we were yesterday? So there are lots of parts of our business that we can make the online ordering experience for our customer better at this location in the following ways. We can make the online ordering experience at the roastery for bean delivery better these ways. Let's make that experience a little bit better every day. And sometimes a major overhaul is needed, and you have to throw everything out and start fresh. But we've taken sort of the approach of, well, let's just make it incrementally better every time, because that's something that we can bite off, every day. And the idea is, and my wife would tell you that I'm famous for trying to eat the whole elephant. I I remember a mentor when I was really young said, Andre, if you're going to eat an elephant, you have to eat it one bite at a time. And Kaylin will tell me often, Andre, don't eat the whole elephant. It's like just little bites. And so this 1% better sort of connects there. And that's something that my team and I work on is, how do we make this one little bite better, today, so that the experience is that much better, and maybe it won't show up for a month, a quarter, half a year, but those little improvements, they will show up eventually.
Yeah.
And I think that so often major overhauls can be so unsettling, both to like the team that's working with it every day, and to our guests. And again, the focus for us is so much on these relationships and the connection that we have with our guests, that we want to retain the things that we're doing really well. And so if we're making just incremental improvements on it, it's likely that many of these improvements won't even be recognizable to our guests. Mm-hmm. But the idea is that over, from when we started until a year from now, those improvements are, well, it's quite a big improvement. It's quite a lot of growth.
Something that is really powerful that I've heard as a theme, and what we've been talking about, is your receptivity to feedback is important, because if it's connected to your why about helping people, making a difference, and someone's giving you feedback, it seems like you're framing that as furthering the cause rather than taking something personal, almost like it's a part of someone giving you feedback is criticism to who you are. It's pretty awesome.
Well, I think there's layers to that, right? Sometimes feedback is personal, and sometimes it hurts and it hits close to home, but it doesn't make it inaccurate. And it is often on reflection, it's, if it hurts, it probably is really accurate. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that, again, actually same mentor told me, Andre, if you're talking, you're not learning, because you can't learn by talking, you learn by listening. So by listening to our guests, by listening to our team, we're learning. And so we can take that learning, and some things I can say, yeah, that's not a fit, or no, that's a direction I don't want to go, or but at least we can have that input from these folks, and then make a decision on, like, this is an opportunity for us to improve, and it's created lots of opportunities for us to do things that, I probably never would have considered. A good example of this is perhaps a silly example, but a former teammate of ours came in and said, Andre, I want to do something called an espresso sunrise. I said, what is that? And she said, she's like, promise to try it before I tell you what it is. I said, okay, fair enough. I'll try it before you tell me what it is. And she said, and she makes me this drink, and it's kind of this funny, like burnt orange color. I try it. I'm like, oh, it's actually pretty interesting. It's a little bubbly. It's pretty sweet. I said, that's quite refreshing. Quite a interesting, kind of great summer drink. And I said, so what is this? And she's like, well, this is an espresso sunrise. I said, okay, what is an espresso sunrise? espresso sunrise is orange juice, espresso, and bubbly water and vanilla. Excuse me. And I thought, that sounds revolting. Like that combination
That's
of
why
things.
she told you to drink it first.
Exactly. That's why she told me. She's like, you have to try it before you say, because orange juice and espresso really that sounds revolting. But I was wrong. It's on our menu today.
That's amazing.
So,
Well, the thing that was awesome is you walked in this morning. You brought some coffee,
Absolutely.
some beans, but you brought something else too that's kind of akin, to this. So talk to us about the cross connection of how you're connecting with other businesses in the community to sort of infuse the things that you guys are up to.
yeah. So, like I mentioned earlier, our friends at River North Brewery are a block from here, and they are, in my opinion, the best in the business. And we have for about a decade now. I think this is our 10th year. We've partnered on their coffee beer, Nightmare Fuel, and this beer has been one of their most winningest beers. 2025 was. Yeah, 2025, I think, was the winningest year of that beer, and I think that is the winningest beer of theirs. It won. I wrote this down because I can never remember the whole list. It won the World Beer Cup, Euro Beer Star, Brussels Beer Challenge. Won in Japan. It wins like awards like crazy.
That's amazing.
It is an incredible beer, and it's something that the Matts and I have been working on for years, and it is such a fun collaboration because they are so good at what they do. Clearly, I think they were the Brewery of the Year in 2025. They're really great folks. The beer is fantastic, and really just great people to work with. And there's a lot of, as it turns out, there's a lot of crossover of their guests and ours. Was in the tap room here on Blake a couple of weeks ago, having a beer with Matt, and we were chatting about what direction we're going in next year. And one of our regular coffee customers came in, like, "What are you doing? Like this is the wrong context. What are you doing in this place? I saw you this morning. What are you doing?" So it was really a great connection there. And anyway, the guys at River North are just outstanding, and it's such a fun partnership to work with them and just be surrounded, I think is maybe, or working with people that are so talented that it really forces you to bring your A game. When you know so much of their work is going into making the results really great and really, award worthy, that you want to make sure that everything that you are doing is at that level, because you certainly wouldn't want to let them down, because of all the effort that they've put in. And so it's been really rewarding to do that. That project is so fun, and the beer is delicious, which also helps.
Wow. We've talked about a lot of things, and I think one of the things that would be kind of like my last question is, what's one lesson you would want, other entrepreneurs to learn from just hearing your specific story?
The story that I mentioned about the winemaker, and the best thing for the grapes are the winemaker's footsteps. I think being and having that connection, like being there, seeing it, feeling it, having the connection and relationships to the team and to our guests is so, I feel like, is so important and is so fulfilling. And I think that is something that I guess I would encourage people, other entrepreneurs, to find ways to do that. Find ways to connect with your guests, and for a coffee or whatever, or coffee beer, and the opportunities there are just. I think there's lots of things that you uncover from those conversations, those just 5-minute how are things, bring me up to speed sort of conversations. But I think I find them more empowering than even the little anecdotes that or little opportunities for improvement that I learn from these conversations. It really connects me to the why I'm doing this. Is having those connections with our guests brings me to the why, and so I think those are, and I find that is the stuff that helps to make this really an enjoyable experience for me as well as for our guests, and something that I want to sustain rather than just something I'm trying to work through the motions of. This was also there's a sticky note on our fridge that my wife put up a few weeks ago that said, "Remember, this is their childhood," and this is a part of a broader statement, but it was something like, this may be a Tuesday commute to you that you're just trying to get through, but remember, this is their childhood, and this is something that I tried to focus on with intention for with my girls, is like, and making sure that this is something that, this is we got to get through this commute and we have to do those things, but making this an experience that's really enjoyable. Both day to day is really enjoyable, and something that's enjoyable for them at home, and this is something that's like enjoyable and something that I am really enjoying doing with while I'm at work, while I'm working with our team and working with our guests, because that life is the thing that, what is that? Life's what happens when you're busy making other plans, right? And so I'm trying to think of that as well. Like this is your life, and so trying to keep that in the forefront, because we don't get a second shot at it. So finding ways to really enjoy it and personally really enjoy it, not just bottom line enjoy it, but like, no, this is something that I find really fulfilling and engaging, and something that is really speaking to my soul, kind of thing.
Yeah. So, well, just hearing your expression of entrepreneurship, business, people, I think if more entrepreneurs operated their business with the type of heart and soul that you have, the likelihood of the massive difference in the world that people will be making would be big. So it was actually amazing to hear you sort of share all of that. It was really powerful.
Thank you. It's fun to like sit and have think about it. Things like this. I mentioned the other day when we spoke that I find the listening to the podcast and the other folks that you've interviewed over the years really enjoyable. And I was reflecting on our conversation a little bit, and it's catharsis for sure. Mm-hmm. But I think it's more than that. And what I got out of the conversation, or excuse me, out of the previous conversations that you've had is it's really really engaging and energizing, and that is and their why, and them talking about the things that that get them excited about their business, mm-hmm. and what they're doing. Helps me reconnect to the things that I really enjoy about my business. And
I love that.
And so I think a thank you to you for doing the podcast, mm-hmm. for just that reason, for myself only, is it's really engaging, energizing, and cathartic too. But I think more so than that, it helps me to really connect to the why.
That's a catalytic energy. I'm glad that's what people are receiving, because small business is, the heartbeat of our country and much of the world. So, Andre, it was amazing to sit down and chat with you. I appreciate you, coming down and having the conversation.
Absolutely, it was really my pleasure.
Well, I wish Logan House all the best.
Well, thanks so much, Chris. Appreciate it.